Well, I came to Washington 21 years ago, I think at this point. I was a congressional science fellow, and I had just gotten my PhD, and I thought I was really smart and that I was going to come to Washington and educate Congress about everything that I knew. And I quickly realized that most members of Congress knew way more about the subject that I had a PhD in than I did, and I learned more about Congress than they learned anything from me. And I think that's particularly true with our next guest in the area of the electric grid. I'm very excited to introduce Congressman Paul Tonko, who is from the New York 20 district, used to be 21st district, the Albany, Schenectady area. He serves on the House Energy Committee, the subcommittee that oversees energy and environment and climate. He was the former CEO of NYSERDA, so right in the middle of all the issues that we care about. So we certainly can learn a lot from him. And the person who's going to be pulling all of that great insights out of Congressman Tonko is our own Krevat, who some of you may know has a very successful podcast called The Climate Champions. So he spent a lot of time interviewing people and really getting their best insights about the grid. So welcome, and I look forward to your conversation.
All right. Well, Congressperson Paul Tonko, welcome to the Climate Champions.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
It's great
having quite an audience.
It's great having you on the show.
Thank you.
So I like to open up just by learning, what was your initial motivator that made you feel that climate change mitigation was something you wanted to get engaged in?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been asked this before, and I think I'm of the vintage that was inspired by JFK, RFK, MLK, and it was aspirational politics, building a better world, a stronger planet, reducing that planet to a village with the Peace Corps, relying on technology to land a person on the moon, and fighting for civil rights so that there was equitable treatment. So it was that kind of aspirational thing that drew my attention to politics. And then, you know, always being inspired by folks like Rachel Carson and making certain that we do a better job at stewardship of our planet, and witnessing, you know, the solar panels on the White House, and knowing that there was opportunity for us to have the potential to really change things, not only just for the nation, but for the world. And so I thought, wow, that would be great. And, you know, as an engineer who finds himself in politics, I guess it had to be a bit of a wonky journey into this arena, knowing that we could do better technologically and engineering-wise and analytically solve some of these world dilemmas, and certainly inspire this nation to maintain a leadership status.
Yeah, we've certainly come a long way since then in the technology that we have, the tools at our fingertips.
Yes, we have. Technology is like not only assisting us, but I think it's challenging us to do even more and to rely on a science-based, evidence-based sort of policy development that enables us to really dig deep into the potential for change, significant change that produces wins across the board.
When people don't have the same perspective as you do about that data and the science that exists, how do you deal with that?
You know, I try to take my practical experience from having served at a county level in elected politics and then transitioning over to 25 years in the New York State Assembly, and use some of those outcomes to kind of provide a comfort zone for folks. I think some of the resistance is, you know, the threats that this could fail, and I think that there's potential for us to take that leap of faith and tap into the intellectual capacity of a great nation and provide for change. I mean, if we can land a person on the moon after a Sputnik defeat, technology can help us do many things, I think.
I agree. What drives you today to fight for climate change mitigation?
Well, I served as energy chair in the state assembly for 15 of my last 25 years in the People's House in Albany, And we're able to address the diversity of New York's energy issues. I believe that earlier you heard from NYPA in the conference, and I was just talking to its leader. And, you know, we have a uniqueness as a state because you have some of the most remote areas, and we have a huge metro area. So it offers different challenges for the sake of providing modern day need and addressing capacity and reliability and affordability. And so I think, you know, having served as energy chair there and developing policy, much of which got signed into law by existing governors, and then being able to implement a lot of that policy that I worked on as president and CEO of NYSERDA. I left the state legislature to lead what I think, excuse me, is a significant agency, consummate professionals who really live their role well beyond the work time that they have. You know, many of them bicycle whenever they can and are involved with Habitat for Humanity. So these are just to set a tone. They're just totally dedicated to, you know, decarbonization, addressing pollution, offering clean energy, and again, providing for a safer and healthier planet. So all of that kind of built this passion through the years, understanding that you can get things done in a bipartisan, bicameral way, and we can all celebrate the victories together. You know, I think that polarization that we see today has got to get resolved because the we and us is far better than the me and us. And, you know, I've been in this for many decades now, and I can compare today to 1976 and beyond. So, yeah, it does build the passion, and it's driven by the fact that these are can-do experiences that really provided for a difference that in the long run creates a sounder planet, less pollution, cleaner air to breathe, a reliance on technology, investment in our R&D, and creating a lot of jobs, sound jobs, sound
quadruple win.
across the scale, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have you had any setbacks in your journey?
Looking at Karen. Yeah, she was there when I arrived in 2009. In 2009, right. And, well, the ACES bill comes to mind, the Markey-Waxman bill, which really was a great, I think, a great bit of legislation. I remember being a freshman at that time in the House and gathering together for dinners with colleagues that were on the fence. And I had lived some of this already because New York was attempting to move forward with this, and we saw some programs over at NYSERDA that were quite doable. And, you know, I was serving as energy chair in New York when we, you know, deregulated, so that, you know, a state like New York had some tense moments, but I was able to, as a new face, and I, you know, tried to do this with as much humility as I could, and not upset the folks who were much senior than me. But I said, in this area, specific area, I've seen it work. And we were able to get the votes together so that we could pass ACES. And the setback for me was when the Senate dropped the ball and didn't get that legislation done. I think it held us back several steps.
So I'm going to flip it around so you get to talk about something you're more excited about. What success are you the most proud of?
Well, certainly, I think just the fact that we were able to move forward and get a lot of legislation done. It was good 11 years after that ACES moment to do the energy bill in 2020. But then to be able to, you know, it's funny when you're in the district, people say, what's Washington doing for us, and all of this stuff, and you have to kind of defend yourself. But this year, it was easy to go out and talk about 4 cornerstones. The American Rescue Plan that enabled a lot of investment, driven by local decision-making, by local boards and city councils and county ledge and operations and the like, and the state of New York and its state legislature. But then, having had the reinforcement that came with the infrastructure bill and with the Chips and Science Act, and then with the Inflation Reduction Bill, it was a tremendous opportunity to create what I think is a magical moment where we're eclipsing from the world of the past, not denying it or rejecting it, but certainly going forward with a new burst of energy, no pun intended, but with a passion, again, with a new vision. I think just like there are chronological generations, there are political generations, and I think this one is going to be a marker for that new world. And, I look at the investments that we're making, to be able to have, a huge investment of $60 billion in the infrastructure bill that goes to DOE to enable them to address smart and resilient grid systems, to be able to put together an outreach that enables us to also realize some, I think it's $7.5 billion for EV infrastructure that goes over to DOT, making all of this happen in a way that is, again, transformational. And so that aspirational politics that I championed and embraced in the 60s seems to be coming into a clean energy mode now. But then also, for my district, we have a huge semiconductor manufacturer in Malta, New York, which is Global Foundries. And, the shot in the arm that came to the industry of some $53 billion for investment in semiconductors is a great opportunity. And I see somewhat of a rectangle with Malta, New York, going west to Syracuse, New York, with Micron doing their thing, and then traveling due south to Binghamton with their R&D investment in battery manufacturing and R&D work in the former IBM vacant space, and then traveling due east to Poughkeepsie, where IBM will be using the memory chips that are being created by Micron. So within that zone, I just see it as a magnetic pull of very savvy minds in technology that will be assisting in all the pieces of the puzzle that will move us forward in a monumental way. And just seeing that, it was great to talk about it in this campaign, to say that, here's this vision, and here's the underpinning language, which, again, was masterful, and the resources that were made available for that transitioning. And then the Inflation Reduction Act with $370 billion for clean energy, and making certain that we not only provide for responsiveness to environmental justice, but clean energy opportunities, extending long-term the tax incentives for clean energy operations, and to put together, another $30 billion for the loan programs at DOE. All of this is, to me, very, very monumental. And, people are saying, well, it's a lot of money. I said, we're playing catch up. I mean, we were woefully behind when you had 4 years of not being able to talk about climate change, or else you were targeted. Any nation that wants to stay a world leader needs to invest in that vision of technology and growth. There's a pioneer spirit in this country that I think is totally grounded in our culture, and that's a pioneer spirit. And, representing the mouth of the Erie Canal, which gave birth not only to New York as a port of entry, we took this little place called New York and made it a port of entry, but we also gave birth to a necklace of communities dubbed mill towns that changed the quality of life around the world. And all this was inspired by investment. So this is that new chapter now of investment accompanying a beautiful vision of how we can better provide for this planet and to grow jobs. We're working with our community colleges to do that. So, a lot of connection, public-private now, that is sitting down and discussing what are the skill sets you need, working it with industry, doing it in hands-on capacity at our community colleges, our apprenticeship programs. We have one in Albany that has been set up to draw in students of color in one of the poor neighborhoods of Albany. And there is ownership there. You can see these young high schoolers and just recent grads of high school going there, they have ownership of that building. So I think it's just uplifting. It's great to see, and it's a great tickle for an engineer.
We were taught the two terms this morning, Uncle Bill and Uncle Ira. And there were times when, personally, I thought maybe, especially with Uncle Ira, that it wasn't going to happen. Were you ever nervous about that, or did you always know?
I was nervous about it, but I maintain a spirit of optimism. I mean, if I don't, I'm not serving my district well. But I kept working every way I could to convince the Senate to move forward, and that if we failed at this, it would be a huge defeat for the country and certainly a political nightmare. So I am really proud of the way these bills were negotiated through. It was surprising, but and some people very much alarmed and angry, but at the same time, this is America at her best, when we can tap into the intellectual potential of this nation and speak in visionary terms and stewardship, so that we're growing this clean energy economy and growing the workforce to make it happen.
Well, I'm super glad it did, because I think it's not only world-changing, but maybe world-saving. So thank you for getting that done.
Well, we owe it to the next generations, right? I oftentimes think now at this age that there was somebody there, a lot of somebodies for me. And, whether it was the opportunity to think big about a new vision for how we grow jobs, or just the focus on quality education, higher ed opportunities, job growth. And we owe it to the generations that follow us, the generations unborn, that will look back, and I want them to say, we got it, and we did it well.
So my next question is going to be about looking into the future. So when you look ahead 20, 30 years from now, do you think climate change will be solved? I mean, how bad do you think it's going to get? Do you think we're going to come out of this?
Well, I think a lot of this legislation will help us get to that net zero emission goal of 2050, and hopefully, reach 40% in the near future with these bills. But I wouldn't kid myself. There's a lot more work to be done. This is going to require a lot of investment and a lot of changes, a lot of maybe uncomfortable change, and sometimes patterns are difficult to turn. But I think that, I just see us responding well to this issue, and every success will, I think, build. It will breed more success as we go forward. And, even COVID has instructed us. So I think all of that will form our thinking. It will inspire us.
How do you think COVID has instructed us?
Well, certainly, I never thought a public health policy would become political, but the fact remains, I think it's very clear that when we're trying to solve a crisis like we haven't seen in a century, and where many, many lives were lost, it reminds us that science-based, evidence-based solutions are not only okay, they're essential. And I think that's the case here as we go forward. It has to rule by physics, not politics. And so we have to go with what works. So I think COVID instructed us, it put us on notice that don't mess with science, embrace it. In fact, it bothers me so much that we don't really provide for pure science. It's up to us as legislators to utilize the facts how we see fit, but don't allow for R&D monies paid for by taxpayers to be manipulated, misrepresented, buried, alterated. I think that's really wrong, and that bothers me so much I drafted the Scientific Integrity Act, which would require federal agencies that dole out federal dollars for research to have standards that are equipped and that we're constantly being a watchdog to make certain it's pure science. What we do with that as a House or as a Senate is up to us, but we have to answer to the public. But let's work with true science. So I think that's one of the lessons of COVID. And then I think basically we found that there were some glaring observations that came from that, supply chain issues. So now for the semiconductor industry, We've got in the IRA opportunities to now rely on manufacturing here in the U.S. to address that supply chain crisis. And it brought it to our attention, and rightfully so. And so hopefully we will learn from that. And I think also it drove the president to reach to the Defense Production Act and to help, again, conquer some of the challenges out there.
Excellent. So what advice do you have for people here, but really for anybody if they want to help to mitigate climate change?
Don't let us relax. Just keep pushing the pedal to the metal and tell us you want more. You want to build on this success and make certain that we're implementing these dollars in the way intended. The legislative intent is pretty well drafted. And I think that it's important for all who are for this kind of progressive agenda to really speak to everyone involved, both majority and minority in both houses, and to the White House and the agencies, to say, hey, look, we have a lot longer to go, but a lot more success that has to be driven. But let's take this moment of creative genius and put it to work and implement it well. And I think COVID reminded us that, there's science waiting to be inserted into our tomorrows as we make huge policy decisions and create projects. So, it's a great opportunity.
Before I open up questions to everybody else,
Sure.
Is there anything else that you really want to say, something I should have asked you so that you could answer?
Well, probably would ask, what innovations do you see in a resilient grid format that are high priority, that I can help drive from my seat on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and from what I have worked on as the chair of the Subcommittee on Environment and Climate. Would love to have you share that with me.
Well, if you're asking me, I would say long-term storage. That is something that needs a lot of attention.
Got it. Yeah, if we're going to have intermittent power, we need, and I think the battery and storage happen to be the linchpins, and I think we need to make certain that we provide incentives for that work too, and that we don't stop with the R&D investment. Research is the key to all of this. I heard an earlier question that, how do we address the capacity issue? And it's going to be a challenge, but at the same time, research can get us there, and just open up to new tools in the kit.
I believe all arrows in the quiver. That's how we get it done.
There you go.
Hey, I think we have time for one question. Anybody have any questions? Yes, in the back.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Hamilton Steimer. I'm with the World Resources Institute. So my one question I have is, as you are going into the minority party in the government, how does that kind of change your outlook, and your work to stay on top of this issue moving forward?
Well, I think, there's a role for both majority and minority parties in either house. And, again, this is making certain that we're doing what is science-based as we go forward. And I will serve in that watchdog role and really push hard for implementation of these bills. It's no secret that some of these bills got no support from the Republicans in the House. And, I'm just hoping that through frank conversation and, again, analytical approaches, that we can continue to drive forward this effort to be transformational. Status quo, standing still, is going backward here. So it's to make certain that we're that watchdog. When I served in the State Assembly, one of my proudest moments was leading us as one of the first states in the country to do mental health parity. And when I came down here, we were preceding the feds when they did that legislation. Then when I came down here, I made certain that I was working with the appropriate agencies to make every effort to be that watchdog. And I see that same role here. The legislation is great, It's a victory. We all cheer and shout when it's signed into law, but that's just the start of the story. So my advice to all of you to stay involved and determined is the advice I need to listen to for myself, to make certain that I do not get overcome by some forces that are going to push back. And this can't be about political victories. You know, we're in a moment in time where we don't have time to waste. And it has to be done with a lot of work together. And even federal agencies, you know, what role does FERC play as we go forward? Is it going to need to have a stronger voice and maybe require more of our states? And, you know, we're not what we were decades ago. You know, we knew a regional capacity for a utility. Now they're wheeling region to region, state to state, country to country. So that requires absolutely to have a different outlook, to open up and to have honest to goodness conversation. And that's what I hope to do as a member in the minority. Slight minority. So, you know, if you don't do it right, I'm going to be working all the harder to make us back in the driver's seat.
Well, on that very serious note, an important note, I'm going to wrap this up with a rap. It was in the 60s when you decided you wanted to serve the nation, and to be a better steward was your aspiration. You showed that about this industry, you really did care. You spend a lot of time as the energy chair. People were on the fence, but you used your will. Unfortunately, the Senate killed the bill. On our net zero journey, we have begun, but as you said, there's work to be done. Congressperson Paul Tonko, I'm sorry you have to go. I'm really super happy to have you on the GridCONNEXT show. Thank you so much, Congressperson Paul Tonko.
I think Lee's got a career as a rapper. So thank you, Lee. Thank you, Karen. Thank you to all in the Connect. Thank you so much, Karen. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
He's got a career as a rapper.
Okay. Well, you may remember that Lee has another side gig that he does, which is he and his brothers test hot sauces. And last year we put Jigger Shaw to the test with, you know, Jigger Shaw on the hot seat
During the interview.
Through the interview. But I have hot sauces for Lee, and so we're going to do a little hot sauce tasting for you.
And I have one for you.
Yeah. So bring it on up.
So last time they were mine, so I knew the level I was getting myself into.
Yeah, where are the hot sauces?
Oh, that's a great question.
Well, I don't know if we're going to have a lot of time to do this. So why don't we talk about how the day went from your perspective?
Oh, this was a fabulous day. I mean, I am absolutely thrilled, and it's not over. So I hear some people did not know that we, for the first time, have a technology showcase. It's small this year, but this is the first time we're doing it, where we asked some of our members to do a little bit of show and tell. And in order to entice you to go listen to their show and tell, there will be cocktails and food in the room behind where the lunch is. So we're really excited about that because we began this initiative earlier this year called the Technology Portfolio. And our goal is to present the technologies that you all work with on a daily basis and some of the upcoming newer technologies that you see in the horizon in a way that distills them into bite-sized pieces for policymakers and for others who are engaging on electricity policy but may not really understand the kinds of technologies that have to be in place in order to meet those policy goals. So we released a technology portfolio paper last year, and now we're going to start slicing those technologies into different papers to talk about the different purposes of the grid technology. So we did the transportation electrification report that Sue held up. We are doing a FERC Order 2222 paper. The next paper in the technology portfolio series will be technologies to support resilience, enhance grid resilience. So this is an ongoing thing that we are hoping to really operationalize through not just this technology showcase, but by reinvigorating the Grid Innovation Caucus, of which Congressman Tonko has been a member, to kind of bring your stories to decision makers and help them understand what has to happen on the grid in order to meet those big policy goals. So with that, Lee, what do you want to start with?
That green one in the Dewar's whiskey bottle, my
The airplane.
son-in-law made, and last year at this time, he had been diagnosed with cancer the day before GridCONNEXT.
Wow.
And he's fine, and now he's my son-in-law, and he made this for me for this show. So let's give it a go.
Oh, my phone's ringing.
It's very, I understand it's very, very mild. So put a lot on there.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. There's cilantro in it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. It's not hot at all.
No.
No.
Now
Okay.
you're in charge. That was my only one.
Okay. Well, I made hot sauces for the first time this year.
Okay.
And my friend had a garden and lots of peppers. So
Is it very hot?
I don't know. I mean, what's hot to you may not be what's hot to me.
Here, put it over there.
Yeah,
You could touch it.
I'm touching it. Yeah. There's hot sauce.
All right.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. I was going to ask you serious questions, but I don't think we're going to have time. Not so spicy.
Yeah. Not
Much
too
more
bad.
spicy than the last one.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I lose my courage.
Okay. So,
I have.
yeah, you got, okay. The next two sauces I did not make, but I bought, and we're going to do a little, award here for, after we taste them. There are two people here who have fantastic socks. And for the fancy socks, you're going to each get a bottle of hot sauce.
Well, whatever's left.
Yeah, right, I'm dumping it all over. Oops, this is Quintana Roo, which is made in Middletown, Virginia.
Cheers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we can eat it. That's a smoky,
That's not as hot as yours.
it's mine. Uh-huh.
No.
No.
That's
Okay,
easy.
where's Johnny Haysbert? Johnny Haysbert. Oh, my God, you say Johnny. Okay, Johnny. Johnny.
Yo, Johnny.
I don't know if you saw it, but Johnny from Hitachi is wearing Itron socks. So shout out. You get the Quintana Roo. Okay. Okay. This is habanero coffee by Unido, which is from Brooklyn.
I don't know if I could have it because it'll keep me up if it has coffee.
Well, then you can have a cocktail in the cocktail hour.
You can do more than that. All right. There you. Oh, that's a lot.
Too much? Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers. It's nice. It's not.
It's
no.
super tasty. I'd put that all over eggs.
Yeah. Where's Michael Levy? Is Michael here from Guidehouse? I think he's from Guidehouse. He has Tabasco socks on, so he gets the other bottle of hot sauce. All right? Oh, wait.
You have one more, right?
We have one more. Yeah, this is more like a sambal olik. It's the other part of the hot sauce.
And this is from the same one that was yours that was really hot.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why it's going last.
And so the seeds and skins.
Right, so I'm going to use this because it's thick.
Thank you. Can I have another?
There you
All
go.
right.
All right.
This is the hot one.
I don't know.
All right.
Okay,
Cheers.
cheers.
We're between everybody and wine.
We are. So that's it.
Yeah. Your hot sauce was the hottest.
My hot sauce was hottest. All right. Well, I'm the winner then. All right. Well, thank you everybody for enduring our humoring ourselves.
Wine and snacks.
Wine and snacks are, and the technology showcase are behind you. And tomorrow morning, we start with a members meeting, which is actually open to everybody, whether you're a member or not, where we'll be talking about our 3-year strategic plan and some other new exciting developments. And then we start at 9:15 with Congressman Bob Latta will be here. He is the Republican co-chair of the Grid Innovation Caucus. It's 9. All right, it's 9. Excellent. Okay. And then don't forget that in the afternoon we're going to be doing a roundtable of with state and local officials and some people from the Department of Energy talking about how to best help the states with their state infrastructure funding. So thanks everybody for
Have a
staying.
great day tomorrow.
Yeah.